Groenewald to talk a little bit more about this. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Dr. Groenewald, are you with us?
Well, firstly, I want to say that what we actually have is now a national state of emergency in South Africa. And of course, the president is well in its powers according to our constitution. And the Freedom Front Plus support these steps. We know it is really very drastic, and these steps are very drastic steps in itself. But we must say to each other that South Africa is in a very vulnerable position. And as the president has said, because of our high numbers of HIV people and tuberculosis people in South Africa, which is part of the immune system. And it is well known that this virus is very dangerous to those people. So we support these steps, and we call on all South Africans that we have to work together. We know some people are losing their jobs. Some people are worrying where they're going to get the money by the end of the month. We will have to see what the real detail is on the plans the president has announced. But let us see the positive side. If we want to limit the effects of the coronavirus in South Africa, we will have to take these steps.
Dr. Groenewald, let me ask you this question. When you say we have to see what the real detail is in the president's plan, to what specifically are you referring to, and what detail would you be looking for from what he's announced already?
Well, firstly, we would like to see, well, we know there's a solidarity fund. Of course, everybody can donate to that. But the question is, to who is it going to be distributed? Is it going to be distributed to individuals? Is it going to be distributed to small businesses? Is it going to be distributed to certain bigger companies, medium companies? That's what I mean by the detail. Also, some other measures, according to legislation, when we look at the unemployment fund, we know already that people can apply and that there are certain relief there, which is more specific. But that's what I mean, that we want for the final detail to see whether it's going to affect specific individuals, all individuals, or who specifically is going to be affected and will benefit by that.
Speaking to the Democratic Alliance interim leader, because I also asked him just in terms of who would qualify for some of these funds, exemptions, tax breaks, etc. And he was saying that it is rather obvious that it's the small, medium and micro businesses who ought to benefit from this. Do you share the sentiment, or do you feel that there's a category of business or individual with whom or for whom there needs to be other plans made?
Well, if you look at the small and medium businesses in South Africa, they provide jobs for quite a lot of people in South Africa. Therefore, from the Freedom Front Plus's point of view, they are very important. Of course, it's very difficult because if you look at your medium businesses, they give for more people jobs. So it's a very difficult issue. But what we say, there must be a fair and just distribution. And that's why I say that we would like to see the detail first. What percentage is going to be given, for instance, to small businesses? Is it going to be given to specific people who come forward to say, listen, I've lost my job. I cannot provide. But in principle, we say that small and medium businesses are very important. We must support them. But of course, the other businesses are also important. But I think the big businesses, they should have enough reserves to survive and also to be able to pay their employees. We know that the profits will be less, but I think that is part of their side.
Okay.
To say that is our contribution to this specific disaster hitting South Africa.
Dr. Groenewald, let me hear from you. While you're awaiting detail, the President does say that there is going to be a safety net that is developed to support people in the informal sector, and we know that they are also amongst the most vulnerable. What would you suggest about how this could be curated, and how much of a percentage of the total funds and who, to what extent, would qualify?
Well, firstly, we will have to go and see what contribution they make as far as employment is concerned. I know the informal sector, normally they don't have employees, but there should be a thorough study as far as that is concerned. They should have the figures and to see, for instance, what did the informal sector provided. I mean, if you're selling shoes in a certain sense, surely, I think that will be seen in a specific perspective towards informal business supplying food for the informal settlements.
Well, which is what I was going to ask Dr. Groenewald. I mean, it's very difficult to measure their contribution to GDP because, as by its nature, it's informal, but certainly the contribution that they make in terms of affordable commodities to those who are at the lower rung of the economy, who can't afford certain foodstuffs, who do rely on the informal sector for cheaper services.
Well, you're quite right. It is very difficult to determine the percentage of their contribution to the GDP. But that's why I say that the experts should come together and they should be able to make a determination about certain percentages. If you go to labor institutions and certain business chambers, they will know more or less the percentage of contribution from the informal sector. There are certain figures as far as that is concerned. And I think those are the figures that will be a guideline as far as the distribution of the funds are concerned.
So one of these who are also going to be vulnerable just in terms of availability of cash on hand to be able to live through these times are those people who are at the lower end of the rung. And I'm looking at the financial sector. The issue of credit, do you think that we're more vulnerable now to, obviously we need to ensure the flow of credit, but also look at the cost of credit so that that is not raised, but at the same time, do you think we're going to see more people indebted?
Yes, well, I think in the end it depends how long this situation is going to continue. Remember, we've got 21 days now. It can be extended with certain prerequisitions that has to comply to according to the Constitution. But if you come to the banking sector, if it's going to continue, it is quite clear that there are going to be more people who's going to have financial problems. I mean, if you look at your banks, they are coming forward. They give extension for 4 months, some 3 months. I hope that they will come forward, and even if it must be extended, to give even longer periods to pay back the debt from the individuals to the banks. At this moment, I saw that they gave for companies less than 20 million what they earn, certain
less than
relief.
50 million.
But I think they should, say again?
It's less than 50 million.
Okay, right. Then some have difference as far as that is concerned. But let me say this, they should extend that to the individuals as well. I think the banks are under pressure, but we also know that there are some measures from the Reserve Bank that they said that they will try to meet the banks as far as the repo rate is concerned. So there are some efforts to see how they can soften the impact of the financial situation to even individuals. But whether it is going to be enough measures and adequate enough, that is a different question. I am afraid that some of our people, especially in the rural areas and the poorest of the poor, are going to be hit very hard by this situation.
Freedom Front Plus leader Dr. Pieter Groenewald.